This meeting, and I welcome anyone who's watching this at home, to our Cabinet meeting of the 17th of November. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Have we had any? No? And then the next one is the minutes of the last meeting, which we held on the 11th of October. And they have been circulated, and I will sign those as a true and correct record if you are happy with those as being a true record. Could you show? Proposed by Councillor Renner-Thompson, seconded by Councillor Watson. All in favour, please show. Agreed. Lovely. Thank you very much. We move on to disclosure of members' interests. Do any members have any interest that they wish to declare at this stage? No. Jeff Watson.
It's already declared, but there are some members of the board that want two or three things, but we have declared it, so it should be okay.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. Yes, well done. Thank you. And the next one is the report of the Joint Interim Director of Children's Services around the outcomes of the statutory consultation on proposals for the Coquet Partnership. I'm going to ask Councillor Renner-Thompson, who's our Cabinet member responsible for education, to talk to us about this. We will then discuss it, and then we will need to adjourn for a short time while we go and discuss the options that are in front of us and decide how we wish to proceed, and then we will return as quickly as we can once we have done that. But first of all, obviously, we need to listen to the arguments and discussion first. Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Leader. This is a very well put together report, and one that you should be quite familiar with by now, but I'll take us through it anyway. The report is the next stage of the County Council's Exemplar School Investment Programme. Since coming to power in 2017, the Conservatives have built new schools in Ponteland and Hexham, invested heavily to transform Hayden Bridge High School, recently approved the plans to build a new high school in Seaton Delaval, and Amble is the next one on the list. If approved today, we will be changing the school system from 3-tier to 2-tier and allocating £39 million into the Coquet Partnership, which breaks down into £3.1 million to relocate Amble First School, £825,000 to expand Amble Links First School, £1 million to expand Broomhill First School, £1.7 million to expand Redrow First School, £1 million to expand Grange View First School, £5.6 million to set up a 50-place special school, and £25.7 million to build out a brand new James Calvert Spence secondary school. This investment will benefit the wider community too, who will have access to new sports facilities, including the provision of a full-size 3G pitch, new running track, sports hall and changing facilities. Should be noted that there are currently no public sports facilities in Amble, so this would be a big boost for the town as well. The report comes after a final 4-week consultation, which ended on October the 20th, and these proposals will take effect from the 1st of September 2024. Only representations from the schools in the Coquet Partnership, the Newcastle Diocesan Education Board and the governing body of Barndale House Special School have been received during this 4-week period. All the first and primary schools are supportive of the proposal to move to a 2-tier structure, while the governing body of James Calvert Spence has given its commitment to work closely with the other schools for the benefit of the children and young people in the Coquet area. All responses are also very supportive of the proposal to create local specialist provision for children and young people with SEN needs in the Coquet area. At this stage, there were no responses from the public, but during the prior informal consultation, responses were overwhelmingly in favour of the move to a 2-tier model, with 92% supporting the proposal, and with that there was overwhelming support for the special school provision too. The funding source breakdown is on page 22 of the report on table 6. 27.5 million comes from our own medium-term financial plan, 1.5 million comes from the SEND capital grant, 8.46 million from the capital maintenance grant, and 1.6 million from the basic need grant. So although the cost has increased with general inflation, we have managed to find other sources of funding to cover the shortfall from our initial investment. And with that, I will present the report and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Have we had any feedback from the relevant scrutiny committee?
Yes, they were most in favour.
Okay, I think I've got a note of that actually, that they were in favour of it. They've raised a point around whether any of the new build would have solar panels, and also that they wanted to have reassurance on the impact on the current workforce.
So the impact on the workforce is in your report, but as per standard procedure, if there are to be any job changes, they will be kept within the current partnership first, and there'll be no outside recruitment unless the positions can't be filled with the existing workforce. In terms of the solar panels, we're not at that level of detail yet. That will be the next point where we go out to tender on school build.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. So today we have got Audrey Kingham, who's on behalf of the local authority. If there are any questions for Audrey, we also have, if not here present, we have included people who have kindly responded to the consultation but don't wish to make representations to the Cabinet. And that's for Amble First School, Lizzie Jackson and Rachel Mugabe. For Amble Links First School, Paul Healy and Linda Williams. For Broomhill First, Jonathan Smith and Anne Gray. For Grangeview First School, Louise Lasky and Rebecca Griffin. For James Calvert Spence, Neil Rogers and Susan Curry. For Walkworth C of E Primary, Linda Ritson and Professor John Hobra. Redrow First School, Richard Bollins and Claire Clark. And for Barndale School, Mark Phillips, the head teacher, and Sue Wildsmith, the chair of governor. I am assuming that there are none of those present in this meeting. There is. Hello, could you come forward? Do you wish to speak? I would be delighted for you to speak if you wanted to, but you would need to come to, if you came over there, and then press the red button and hope it doesn't explode. If you can introduce yourself first, that would be really good. And Mr. Hunter will show you how to do everything, won't you? There we are. Is this a question to our guest?
Oh, no.
No. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? Well, thank you very much indeed for that.
Okay, thank you.
Very important that you said that. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you very much. I'll then bring in Councillor Jeff Watson, who is the councillor, or one of the councillors, but certainly the councillor for James Calvert Spence area in Amble.
I cover the Calvert Spence School and the middle school. I don't cover the other schools as well. But all I want to say was I'd like to congratulate and thank Guy and his team, first of all, for doing all the work so openly and transparently and in such good form with the other schools. The other thing I particularly want to thank him about is the representation from the community in the area about the sports facilities, and he's already outlined, and I hope nobody missed it, a 3G football field, which is a huge thing for the community in that whole area. There isn't those facilities at all, and they'd be very, very welcome. And it's real pleasure to see them taking such a positive view of this whole development. So thank you, Guy, and thank you to your team.
Nice of you. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask our legal advisor, Helen Lancaster, is there anything specifically you wish to add at this stage? I'm going to probably read out the recommendations that we have if there's no further discussion, and then I will ask for an adjournment for us to go and discuss these recommendations. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's customary at this point for the legal advisor to read out some quite lengthy legal advice. So apologies in advance for the length of this legal advice. So thank you, Chair. So yes, to change the age range at the following, proposals are, as you've heard, to change the age range at the following schools with effect from the 1st of September 2024 in relation to Amble First School from 4 to 9 years to 4 to 11 years, Amble Links First School from 2 to 9 years to 2 to 11 years, Broomhill First School from 3 to 9 years to 3 to 11 years, Redrow First School from 3 to 9 years to 3 to 11 years, and James Calvert Spence College from 9 to 18 years to 10 to 18 years in the interim, followed by a further change from 10 to 18 years to 11 to 18 years, with effect from the 1st of September 2025. Secondly, to enlarge the premises at the following schools with effect from 1st of September 2024 or as soon as reasonably practicable thereafter, Amble Links First School from a capacity of 138 to 210, Redrow First School from a capacity of 120 to 210, and Broomhill First School from a capacity of 75 to 105. Thirdly, to change the number of pupils in a special school, namely Barndale House School, by way of an increase from 60 planned pupil places to 110, with effect from 1st September 2024. And fourthly, to expand Barndale House School onto a satellite site to be located in part of the current James Calvert Spence College building, South Avenue, Amble, Morpeth, Northumberland, with effect from 1st September 2024. In addition to the above proposals, details of the following further proposals, which were not required to form part of the statutory proposals, have also been provided for information purposes. To change the age range of Grangeview Church of England Voluntary Controlled First School from 3 to 9 years to 3 to 11 years, with effect from 1st September 2024, to replace or refurbish the current James Calvert Spence College building, to expand the physical capacity of Grangeview Church of England Voluntary Controlled First School from 150 to 210, by the addition of one classroom to accommodate no more than 30 pupils, with effect from 1st September 2024, and to transfer Amble First School to the building of James Calvert Spence College, located at South Avenue, Amble, with effect from 1st September 2024, or as near to that date as practicably possible. The above proposed changes to school age ranges, enlargement of school premises, and transfer of site proposals, which are not required to form statutory proposals, are to be considered by the decision maker concurrently with the statutory proposals, as they are inextricably linked. Statutory notices were published by Northumberland County Council on 22nd of September 2022, setting out the above proposals. And this advice sets out the issues which Cabinet need to take into account in reaching a decision on the proposals and sets out specific advice on a range of points. You're being asked to consider whether to approve or to reject the proposals. If Cabinet were to approve the proposals, then such approval can be with modifications. However, you would firstly have to consult with the proposer on these modifications. Approval of the proposals can also be subject to certain prescribed conditions being met. The Cabinet, as the decision maker, must set a date by which any stipulated conditions must be met, and this date must be before the proposed implementation date of the proposal. Cabinet are requested to approve the proposals for the Coalcote Partnership conditional upon the granting of planning permission by 31st of August 2024 in relation to the proposed building works at Amble Links, Broomhill and Redrow First Schools, proposed building works for Amble First School at the current site of James Calvert Spence College, South Avenue site, and in relation to the construction and refurbishment of the new school buildings for James Calvert Spence College. At the same time, Cabinet is requested to consider and approve the non-statutory proposal to extend the age range of Grangeview Church of England First School and to extend the school building with effect from 1st September 2024, as it's linked to the other proposals outlined above. Cabinet are also requested to approve the proposals for Barndale House School, conditional upon the granting of planning permission by 31st August 2024, in relation to the proposed building works for Barndale House Special School at the current site of James Calvert Spence College by 31st August 2024. Information pertaining to buildings and building costs are dealt with from paragraph 38, page 21 of the report to Cabinet, with reference to the outline business case which is attached to the report at Appendix 3. Cabinet are requested to approve the allocation of 39.06 million from the funding sources at paragraph 38 of the report towards the capital costs required to support the implementation of the prescribed changes, and to approve the outline business case attached to the report as Appendix 3 to allow the project to progress as outlined. Cabinet is also requested to delegate the responsibility for approving the award of contract to the preferred contractor following the procurement process as laid down in the outline business case to the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People and the Joint Interim Director of Children's Services, noting that a further report detailing the outcomes of the outline business case will be brought to Cabinet at a later date for final approval. In legal terms, the proposals are characterised as prescribed alterations to a maintained school under the statutory guidance making significant changes to maintained schools of October 2018, and the full guidance is included in the report to Cabinet at Appendix 4. The guidance sets out the statutory process which must be followed, and also aspects which must be considered in coming to a decision regarding the proposals published by Northumberland County Council on 22nd of September 2022. In coming to a decision on approving or rejecting the proposals, you must take into account the guidance. All proposals for prescribed alterations must follow the processes set out in the guidance. Local authorities can make limited changes to schools without following a statutory process, but they are nevertheless required to adhere to the usual principles of public law. The actions
Simon
they must
Johnston
take and the
Is now
expectations
exiting.
upon them when proposing to make any such changes are set out on pages 24 and 25 of the guidance. The statutory process for making prescribed alterations to a maintained school must follow the following 4 stages. Publication, representation, decision and then implementation. The first 2 stages of the statutory process cover procedural aspects which a decision maker must satisfy itself have taken place before considering the actual merits of the proposal. Currently, we are at the decision stage. There's no prescribed pre-publication consultation period. However, there is a strong expectation that schools and local authorities will consult interested parties in order to develop their proposal prior to its publication date, in accordance with their public law duty to act rationally and to take into account all relevant considerations. It's also best practice to take timing into account. A pre-publication informal consultation period on these proposals took place between the 11th May and 29th of June 2022, all during term time. I would therefore advise this expectation as set out in the statutory guidance has been met. Stage 1 concerns the publication of the statutory proposal. The statutory proposal must contain sufficient information in plain English for interested parties to make a decision on whether to support or challenge the proposed change. Where the proposal for one change is linked to another, this should be made clear in any notices published. The full proposal must be published on either the school or local authority's website, along with a statement detailing how copies of the proposal may be obtained, that anyone may object to, support, comment or comment on the proposal, the date that the representation period ends, and the address to which objections or comments should be submitted. A brief notice, including details of how the full proposal can be accessed, for example the website address, must be published in a local newspaper. If the proposal is published by a governing body, then notification must also be posted in a conspicuous place on the school premises and at all of the entrances to the school. There are further requirements that within 1 week of the date of publication on the website, the proposer must send a copy of the proposal to the governing body or local authority as appropriate, the parents of every registered pupil at the school, where the school is a special school, if it involves or is likely to affect a school which has a religious character, the local Church of England diocese, the local Roman Catholic diocese, and proposals affecting a special school should go to any local authority that has commissioned a place at the school, i.e. all relevant authorities who have made an out of borough or county placement there, and any other body or person deemed appropriate. The relevant statutory proposals can be found at Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 of the report. Both proposals meet and have been published in accordance with the statutory requirements. So stage 2, representation. The next consideration concerns representations and whether the correct amount of time was allowed for representations to be made and received. The representation period must last 4 weeks. Representations were able to be made between 22nd of September 22 and 20th of October 22. It's therefore clear from the proposals that the requisite 4 weeks was given for representations to be both made and received. I consider that the statutory requirements regarding publication of both statutory proposals and the period allowed for formal consultation whereby representations could be made have all been complied with. 7 representations were received, 1 from each of the governing bodies in the partnership. Following publication of the proposals for the Coquet Partnership, 1 representation was received from the governing body. Following publication of the proposals for Barndale House School, the Newcastle Diocesan Education Board also submitted a joint representation in respect to both statutory proposals. The outcome of consultation and summary of the representations received following publication of each statutory proposal are set out in paragraphs 18 and 19 of the report. A copy of the full representations is understood to have been provided with the background papers to the report. Decision makers will need to be satisfied that the appropriate, fair and open local consultation and/or representation period has been carried out and that the proposer has given full consideration to all the responses received. Decision makers should not simply take account of the numbers of people expressing a particular view, and instead they should give the greatest weight to responses from those stakeholders likely to be most affected by a proposal, especially parents of children at the affected schools where applicable. So stages 3 and 4, decision and implementation. The 3rd and 4th stages of the process are the decision and implementation stages. A decision must be made within 2 months of the end of the representation period, i.e. no later than 20th December 22, or they must be referred to a school's adjudicator. So we're currently at the decision stage. Implementation will depend upon the decision taken today. Where proposals appear to be related to other proposals, the decision maker must consider the related proposals together. A proposal should be regarded as related if its implementation or non-implementation would prevent or undermine the effective implementation of another proposal. If you're satisfied that the stages noted above relating to the statutory process have taken place in accordance with the guidance or legislation, you should then take into account a number of factors highlighted in the guidance in order to reach your decision. Factors from the guidance you should consider. The following factors outlined in the report and the statutory guidance should be taken into consideration. You should bear in mind that these factors are not an exhaustive list and the importance of each factor will vary. So firstly, consideration of consultation and representation period. As confirmed previously, you will need to be satisfied that the appropriate, fair and open local consultation and representation period has been carried out and that the proposer has given full consideration to all the responses received. As the decision makers, you must consider all the views submitted, including all support for, objections to and comments on the proposal. A summary of the representations received is provided in the report. Education standards and diversity of provision. As decision makers, you should consider the quality and diversity of schools in the area and whether the proposals will meet or affect the needs of parents, raise local standards and narrow attainment gaps. This is covered in paragraphs 27 and 28 of the report. Equal opportunity issues. Decision makers must comply with the public sector equality duty of local authorities and governing bodies, which requires them to have due regard to the need to eliminate discrimination, advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations. This is covered in paragraph 29 of the report to Cabinet. An equalities impact assessment has been carried out during the pre-publication and statutory consultation processes, and this can be found at Appendix 5 of the report, and Cabinet should have regard to it. Community cohesion. When considering these proposals as decision makers, you must consider their impact on community cohesion. This will need to be considered on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the community served by the schools and the views of different sections within the community. Travel and accessibility. You need to be satisfied that accessibility planning has been properly taken into account, along with the local authorities' duty to promote the use of sustainable travel and transport to school. Proposed changes should not adversely impact disadvantaged groups, and you should bear in mind a proposal should not unreasonably extend journey times, increase transport costs, or result in too many children being able to travel sustainably due to unsuitable walking or cycle routes. This is addressed at paragraph 31 of the report. Funding. You need to be satisfied that any land, premises or necessary funding required to implement the proposal will be available and that all relevant local parties have given their agreement. A proposal can't be approved conditionally upon funding being made available. Where proposals are relying on the department as a source of capital funding, there can be no assumption that the approval of a proposal will trigger the release of capital funds from the department, unless the department has previously confirmed in writing that such resources will be available, nor can any allocation in principle be increased. In such circumstances, the proposal should be rejected or consideration deferred until it's clear that the capital necessary to implement the proposal will be provided. Building work costs and funding are covered in paragraph 38 of the report. School premises and playing fields. Under the School Premises England regulations, all schools maintained by local authorities are required to provide suitable outdoor space in order to enable physical education to be provided to pupils in accordance with the school curriculum, and for pupils to play outside safely. This is covered in paragraph 41 of the report. Other relevant matters to be considered, as outlined in the guidance. Where additional school places are needed, the local authority can propose an enlargement of the capacity of premises. It's expected that, where possible, additional new places will only be provided at schools that have an overall Ofsted rating of good or outstanding. Schools which do not fall within the above categories should only be expanded where there are no other viable options. Local authorities are expected to consider a range of performance indicators and financial data before deciding whether a school should be expanded. Where schools are underperforming, it's not expected they would be expanded unless there's a strong case that this would help raise standards. The current Ofsted outcomes for each of the schools in the Coquet Partnership are confirmed in paragraph 27 of the report. Each school has a good rating. Where proposers seek to expand onto an additional site, they will need to ensure that the new provision is genuinely a change to an existing school and not, in reality, the establishment of a new school. Decisions about whether a proposal represents a genuine expansion will need to be taken on a case-to-case basis, but proposers and decision-makers will need to consider the non-exhaustive list of factors set out on pages 9 and 10 of the guidance, which are intended to expose the extent to which the new site is integrated with the existing site and the extent to which it will serve the same community as the existing site. The factors relate to the reasons for the expansion, admission and curriculum arrangements, governance and administration and physical characteristics of the school. So, options. Cabinet are able to make the following range of decisions regarding the proposals: reject the proposal, approve the proposal without modification, approve the proposal with modifications having consulted the local authority and or governing body as appropriate, or approve the proposal subject to certain conditions, such as the granting of planning permission being met. The Cabinet, as decision maker, must set a date by which any conditions must be met, and this must be a date before the proposed implementation date of the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, could you just go back on that again? I missed something. That was done without repetition, deviation or hesitation. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well done, Helen. Thank you. So this is the stage where we discuss or debate the broad issues that you've just heard about. I will then read out a very short version of what we need to think about before we come to the recommendations. We will make our recommendations here, and then we will adjourn to go and give our reasons for making those recommendations. So, are there any matters that anyone wishes to discuss or debate in all of that Helen so beautifully read out? No. Okay, so I'm now going to, I have to tell you this as well now, which is that the responses received to the statutory proposals and the commentary contained within this report, we have to consider the implications of proposals on schools and the local community, as has been set out, the implications for home to school transport, the outline business case for James Calvert Spence College, and the need to review Cabinet's capital investment in schools in the COCOT partnership and the potential impact on the building solution for the satellite site of Barndale House Special School should it decide not to approve the proposals to reorganise the schools. So we have clear decisions. We can either do nothing, we can either not agree these proposals, or we could agree the recommendations which are laid out in front of you, which have been explained in great detail by Helen. So may I have a proposer, please? The proposal is to accept the recommendations?
Accept the recommendations as read. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Watson. Thank you very much. Could you show by your show of hands if you agree with that course of action? So that is unanimous. So that is our decision. We will now adjourn briefly outside to a quiet area and give reasons for our decision as we need to, as far as this protocol is concerned. We won't be very long, and thank you. I'll try and do as well as Helen did. Having considered all the responses to the statutory consultation, the proposals to extend the age ranges of Amble First School, Amble Links First School, Broom Hill First School, Grange View Church of England First School, and Red Row First School, and to reduce the age range of James Calvert Spence College, should be adopted and implemented without modification for the following reasons, and here they are. Number one, the governing bodies of the first schools, the majority of parents and staff of schools in the partnership who responded to the informal and statutory consultations, and the Newcastle Diocese, how do I say that one again? Diocese, sorry. Education Board support the proposals, while the governing body of JCSU has expressed a desire to support whichever structure of school is approved. Cabinet supports the educational rationale proposed by the first schools, which is, 1, first schools are well placed to deliver the primary curriculum to the end of Key Stage 2 as primary specialists. The two-tier primary second structure matches the national curriculum and is in line with the majority of schools nationally. Thirdly, having fewer transitions would benefit children with SEND especially. And finally, schools would have accountability for whole key stages in the two-tier primary secondary structure. 33.6 million will be invested in the buildings of the COCOT partnership to support the reorganisation and include the provision of new buildings for JCSC. Parents will retain the ability to express a preference for a place for their child in any school in Northumberland or any other local authority. The consultation on this proposal has been extremely extensive, reasonable and robust, and for that I would like to thank Councillor Renner-Thompson and all our staff that have been involved in that, and all of the people that actually responded to the consultation as well, for which we are deeply grateful. The reasons for the increase of pupil numbers at Barndale House Special School through the creation of a satellite site in Amble. Having considered all the responses to the statutory consultation, the proposal to increase the number of pupil numbers at Barndale House Special School from 60 to 110 through the creation of a 50-place satellite site in Amble is approved for the following reasons. 1, there is currently no specialist provision within the COCOT partnership. Therefore, the educational rationale to increase provision for children and young people with SEMH, ASD, MLD and SLCM, those needs in this part of the county is necessary to meet those needs and to meet the demonstrated growing need is sound. Furthermore, the creation of specialist provision within the COCOT partnership will enable this vulnerable group of young people to be educated within or as close to their home communities as possible, reducing the need for long journeys to schools and supporting their ability to make local friendships, which is extremely important. Thirdly, the governing body of Barndale House Special School is fully supportive of the rationale and the proposal. The funding of 5.6 million for the necessary works to the proposed building at the current JCSC South Avenue site is in place. And finally, this consultation has been extensive, reasonable and robust, and again I'm most grateful to everyone involved in the consultation. Those are the reasons for making the decision we have, and I think it's a hugely important day for Northumberland, for Amble and the surrounding area. And I think anything that this administration can do to improve the life chances and education of our young people is always of paramount importance. So I apologise for the delay it's taken in getting through to this, going through this process, but it's ultimately exceptionally important that we take our time at every step of the way, and that began the first time we started talking about this, through all the consultation stages to where we are today. I'm hugely proud of our staff who have guided us through this. I'm very proud of our administration that have put nearly £40 million into the budget to pay for this new school and new schools in the area, which will benefit young people hugely. And all I can say is I'm so pleased and grateful for everything that everyone has done. Richard.
Thank you, Leader. So this is something that's been long in our plans. We've had some disruption with COVID and all sorts of other things that have tried to get in the way, but we're determined to deliver for the people of this partnership area. Amble is a growing and thriving town. It was fantastic to see Ofsted ratings improving for the high school just recently, and this will set them on the path, I'm sure, to doing even better in the future. I know it's something that's supported throughout the community by our local MP, by our cabinet, by our administration, and everybody who has engaged in the process, really. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to everyone on the cabinet for your support on this. As Councillor Mearmouth has just pointed out, James Carvett-Spence High School recently had a good Ofsted rating, which is the best rating that school has ever had. That is down to the hard work of the staff there at James Carvett-Spence. Let's not forget that this is a maintained school, so the staff in that school are staff of the County Council, and they've worked incredibly hard. It's also down in no small part to our own school improvement team here at the County Council, which we have put a lot of our political support behind, and they've been in that school working to improve it. So the exam results have come out. We will look forward to seeing them improve as we move away from the disruption caused by COVID, and this investment means that school has a long future ahead of it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watson is the local member. Do you want to add anything?
I would just like to say that if I could take my council hat off for a moment and just say, as a resident of this area, how pleased I am with the County Council and the amount of work and the amount of money they're putting into making sure that our children get the best education that they can possibly receive. We've been wanting it for a long time. As you rightly said, it was delayed by circumstances beyond the Council's control. But I'm very, very grateful that we've managed to get through with something which is universally accepted by all of our schools and the vast majority of all the residents in the area. So thank you, Council. Well done.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so if there are no further comments, are we complete with this now, Helen? And we have covered everything correctly. Good. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you to all of those who have been watching this, and the very best of luck and best wishes for a fantastic new school and new school structure. Okay, so we move on now to the report number 5, which is around the SEND, special educational needs, disability, capacity and place planning strategy. We have a 5-year plan and a strategy which is attached to the minutes of this, and I'm going to ask Councillor Renner-Thompson to tell us about them.
Thank you, Leader. So you'll have heard already how much a priority education is for me as a Cabinet member and for the administration. And we have our Cabinet priorities, and improving SEND outcomes is one of our key priorities. The report sets out quite succinctly the issue we face. From 2013 to 2012, there were an extra 490 pupils with an education and healthcare plan, which is an increase, an annual increase of 7% every year. The proposed increase going forward to 2026 is another 700 children on top of that. So for various reasons, many out with our control and not quite well understood, the number of children who need some special educational help has been increasing and is continuing to increase. The County Council has never before done a SEND capacity and place planning. We do one for our maintained schools and have done for a long time. And what that does is it lets us look at the current numbers of pupils, predict what the numbers of pupils will be going forward, and then from that you can then plan into the future your investment and place planning. And the strategy itself, which is on page 5 onwards, as I said, the first one that's ever been done, does set out what our current SEN provision is, what we're doing to help those pupils now, and what we're going to do to help those pupils going forward in the future based on the research that has been done. And I think the most poignant bit would probably be in the conclusion. This strategy is the first time Northumberland has brought together the place planning methodology used to plan for mainstream school places to predict the number of specialist places likely to be required over the next 5 years, and formulate a strategy on how to engage at a local level to ensure our children and young people can have their needs met as close to their home communities as possible. And that's what this is all about. And if you've got any questions, we've got Audrey Kingham here, the Director of Education, and myself who will be happy to answer those questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Renner-Thompson. It is quite striking that numbers have actually doubled in 9 years, and that the predicted increase over the next 5 years is going to be a further 700 pupils. So could I just ask you, Audrey Kingham, please, what are the immediate plans to address this?
Thank you, Leader. This strategy gives us the direction and the position to understand where we need to invest. We now have an evidence base to be able to understand the areas of need much more closely to home, as we've already talked about. It means that more of our children will travel less. It means that more of our schools will have investment to support the challenges that they face, additional staffing, additional resources. And it also means that with this strategy that more of our children will remain in mainstream schools. So whilst this is about having more children with education healthcare plans, it is not necessarily about having an additional 700 special school places.
That's helpful, thank you. Any other questions? If not, we have two recommendations. One is to approve the approach for growth within the strategy in order to increase capacity in line with the predicted demand across Northumberland to meet the needs of children and young people as close to their home communities as possible. And secondly, to approve the annual update of the plan to ensure the information used to plan and grow capacity is reflective of the demand for specialist provision. The update will be reported to Cabinet and also to the Family and Children's Services Committee. And that reminds me that we do have, I think, Councillor Renner-Thompson, a note from the Scrutiny Committee. Could you tell us what that's
We
about?
have. There was a good meeting of scrutiny. In particular, the committee asked about the needs of SEND pupils over in the west of Northumberland, and they were assured by members there was less demand for specialist provision in the west, and the current needs were currently being met in Hexham by existing provision. However, officers are going to go away and run a workshop on that. That has been a particular area of question. The committee also asked, like us, about why there'd been a 78% increase in children, and they were looking at setting up a task and finish group to work out if they could come up with the answer to that. But on the whole, they were mostly in favour of the report.
Okay, thank you very much. I've read out the recommendations. Have actually added Cabinet as well in number 2. Are you, first of all, okay with that amendment? Please show. Yes, okay, so that will then read Cabinet and Family and Children's Services Scrutiny Committee. So is there a proposer for those 2 recommendations as amended? Proposed by Councillor Renner-Thompson, seconded by Councillor Riddle. Are you all in favour, please? Thank you very much indeed. That's unanimous. That takes us on to our next report, which is the budget. And 23 to 24, and the medium-term financial plan, 2023 to 27. I'm going to ask Councillor Wearmouth to give us the good news.
Thank you, Leader. Much obliged. And so this isn't obviously anything other than a budget update at the moment in terms of the current position as we make our route through to the actual budget meeting in early next year. And this is catching up a little bit in terms of the budget setting process and for the, as you say, the medium-term financial plan, which will last for a 4-year period. These documents, as you'll know, having seen them before, are very much a snapshot of a place in time. And in many respects, there are aspects of this document that are already out of date, given that the Chancellor took to the floor in the House of Commons and made a series of confirmations or otherwise in terms of government spending. And so please bear that in mind in terms of reading the report and looking to the future. So there remains, despite the statement from the Chancellor in the House earlier today, a degree of uncertainty regarding the local government settlement. That usually comes in December and usually very late in December. And other aspects of government spending and the settlement associated spending that will come later. What we do know is that we've had confirmation today in terms of a number of things, such as the precept, potential for the precept to go up for adult social care, for the level of the council tax ceiling before you need a referendum locally. We got information that will be relevant to our budget setting in terms of a rise in the living wage to reflect inflation. And we saw information provided by the Chancellor in terms of increases in the school budget and in the household support scheme, which included £1 billion or so that presumably will be delivered through local councils as it has been in the past. So we'll be feeding that into our budget processes we go through, and myself and the Section 151 officer and others in the team will be doing that. This document on page 3 did, at this snapshot in time, identify some best and worst cases in terms of the level of savings that we might need to find in our budget coming forward, but that will be refreshed in the very near future, and I will share that with Cabinet colleagues. As time goes on, so we'll set assumptions in terms of inflation, in terms of interest rates, and as you will be aware, we're profiling the capital programme as well, which influences how much our debt repayments and so on are likely to be in year. So I'll just take you to the recommendations on the front page, and that is for members of the Cabinet just to review the note of the revisions and assumptions and the risks within the budget and medium-term financial plan. Note that further work is required to refine the MTFP, that revenue implications of the capital programme are still to be updated, and that will follow shortly, and that the budget balancing measures required to be identified over the MTFP will follow in due course. And finally, to review and note the budget consultation strategy, which has been well rehearsed in previous meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So let me say straight away that we will be looking extremely hard at how we can avoid having to use the 5% increase when it comes to council tax, and that is something we are working on very hard indeed, because obviously it is extremely important that we recognise that all our residents are facing difficulties because of inflation mainly, and we will help if we possibly can on that. There is significant amount of time left on this. We've got, I think it's January, and then January we have our kind of first cut of the budget, and then in February we will take it to council. And we will do everything we can to reflect the current issues that we have, that we all have to deal with. So are there any questions around this paper? And perhaps would Section 151, our finance officer, like to come in on anything? I say hello to Jan Willis. There she is. Do you want to add anything, Jan?
No, I think Councillor Wearmouth has covered all the key points. Thank you, Leader.
Okay then. So are there any questions or queries about the budget? Councillor Horncastle, was there anything from you? No. Okay. Right. In that case, are you proposing them?
Yes, I will, but I'll just chime in with a little bit more, which is that
Yes.
whilst there's a lot going on in the economy and people will look at the budget today and see the things that the Chancellor's needed to do, there's a reason for great optimism in the future of Northumberland, that wages are going up, that unemployment is at pretty low levels historically, and there's not a projection that that will change at all significantly in the years to come. So, we will continue as our priorities to make sure that we're protecting those that need our help the most in terms of our budget setting, that we continue to grow the economy, and that we drive value for money within the council.
Indeed, those are our key.
With that, I propose the
Thank you. I mean, I would just underline those are our key three priorities, which is value for money and tackling inequalities and encouraging business growth. And on the last one, it was very encouraging to see the beginning of the build of JDR cables earlier. Was it last week? Which will bring 170 plus jobs and a very, very good employer, I think, a very good company. So lots to be feeling positive about. Councillor Watson.
Just a question for Jan. Have we now got all the information that we need to set our budget, or are we still waiting for some more information before we can actually go fully final?
The short answer is no, Councillor Watson. We won't know our full funding position until we have the final local government settlement, which normally comes at the end of January. We'll have a pretty good indication when we get the provisional settlement, which we hope will be this side of Christmas. But at this stage, we don't have enough information. And as the leader and Councillor Wearmouth have said, there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done between now and January to put the complete first draft of the budget proposals together.
Marvellous. Thank you very much. Okay, so Councillor Wearmouth has proposed those, seconded by Councillor Riddle. Are you all in favour of those recommendations? That is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. We then move on to Bebbside to Town Centre cycling and walking corridor, the outline business case. I'll ask Councillor Wojciech-Plojaj to tell us about this.
Thank you, Leader. It's a very technical and procedural report, which we do quite usually with all energizing life projects. The purpose of this report is to approve the outline business case for Bebbside to Town Centre cycling and walking corridor, to allow it to progress to full business case and delegate authority to Section 151 officer to approve that full business case and report all capital implications to Capital Strategy Group, and as well as to delegate authority to Executive Director to execute all contracts relating to the project, subject to funding being in place and appropriate procurement processes being followed. Project will deliver a cycling and walking route connecting new train station Blythe Bebbside through town's major employment sites to the town centre. This will enable residents, workers, learners and visitors to move easily between key locations in the town. The total cost of the project is 6.9 million, provided by Town Deal Fund and Northumberland County Council. The council's contribution is identified in the existing medium-term financial plan. That funding also includes 24% risk allocation for any contingencies and any risk identified in the process. The project is due to be completed by the end of February 2026. And just one thing to highlight, the outline business case has been already approved by the Town Deal Board on 28 September this year. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So, a brilliant initiative. Councillor Worth, can you just tell us about the finances here, because it is an expensive scheme?
Absolutely, Leader. So this is something that is part of the, as Councillor Posh has mentioned, of the Town Deal. As part of that, the County Council has set aside money in the capital programme to ensure that we match some of that funding and make sure that we get maximum impact in Blythe, which is exactly what we want. We know it's a town on the up, a forgotten town no more under this administration and under this government. And to that end, as you'll see on page 7, the County Council is matching the Town Deal funds, Town Deal funding of 4.7 million, and our capital programme adding in 2.1 million or so there to complete a £6.8 million part of the programme, which is a very, very substantial programme indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is a very substantial amount of money, but it will make life so much better in Blythe for local people, for tourists, and will provide that really important link to the new station. So, very positive news. Are there any questions? Councillor Horncastle, any questions? No? Any questions from anyone? You all happy? Good. So we've got those recommendations. I'll read them out, which is to approve the outline business case for the Bebbside to Town Centre cycling and walking corridor, to enable progression to a full business case, to delegate authority in accordance with the local assurance framework to the Council's 151 officer, and that is the lady behind me, following consideration by Energising Blythe Programme Board, to approve the full business case and report the capital implications to the Capital Strategy Group for inclusion in the capital programme, and delegate approvals to the Executive Director to execute all contracts relating to the project, subject to confirmation of associated funding being in place and the appropriate procurement processes being followed. Is the proposer for these proposed by Councillor Pojai, seconded by Councillor Patterson? Are you all in favour, please? Show. Unanimous. Great news for Blythe. Thank you very much indeed for that one. And I think another bit of expenditure for that part of the world, Councillor Pojai. The next paper is around NEP1, the Energy Park, the dock capping beam updated North East Local Enterprise Partnership full business case.
Thank you, Leader. As previously, it's a very procedural report and very similar to the previous one. In that difference that in this case, the Cabinet is asked to approve the full business case for capping beam works on the Ash Barge deep water dock, which is part of the Northumberland Energy Park 1, which currently has been transferred to JDR Cables, which Leader just mentioned, which will create 170 jobs. Just on the bank of the River Blythe. As previously, that report asked to delegate authority to Section 151 officer to report all capital implications to Capital Strategy Group, as well as approve the request to spend £500,000 from Town Deal funding towards this project, as well as approve the allocation of £31,621 from Energising Blythe project existing in current medium-term financial plan towards the installation of that capping beam. The original project was for heavy-duty access link to NEP1 site. However, it couldn't proceed due to some subsidy control limitation, which resulted in that alternative scheme being presented here. The capping beam is an essential part for any operational dock and is necessary to service JDR Cables facility as well as wider Northumberland Energy Park. The overall aim of the project is to provide access for energy sector businesses to an additional water deep-water berth to unlock the full investment and employment potential of the Northumberland Energy Park. Project is jointly funded by the Town Deal Fund, Northumberland County Council and North of Tyne Combined Authority, and it's due to be completed by March next year. Thank you.
Fantastic partnership working again. And thank you very much to those key partners that you've just mentioned, and all the work that again is going on in Blythe. Any questions, comments? I'm sure you all fully support the recommendations, which are?
Yeah, Leader,
Yes, of course.
If you would allow me, thank you. So we, Councillor Posh, I and others, assembled not so long ago, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, at the site for JDR cables. And just in the distance, across that huge site, you could see where this capping beam would be placed to make sure that we maximise the potential of the investment we've already put in place in that deep water berth on that site. To allow for import-export across that dock and linking into Battleship Wharf as well. It's a really critical bit of infrastructure, and schemes like JDR cables and others that will come forward in the area in a very short space of time, I know, are coming to this part of the county because we have proactively put these sorts of things in place and gone out on with a bold vision of what we want to see happen in the southeast of the county, as we have done across the rest of the county, and we're being rewarded across Northumberland for putting these sorts of things in place. And that's why we'll weather any storm that's to come economically so much better than anywhere else. Thank you.
That's very good, I agree. Councillor Watson.
You may remember, Chair, at the beginning of the meeting, I made an observation that there may be some points where we perhaps might be wise not to take part. Councillor Guy Wren-Thompson, myself, being on the advanced board, will not vote on this particular issue. Will abstain, just so you're clear.
Yeah, thank you. That's absolutely fine. Any questions, comments from anyone? No? Okay, so I would just say that I would add my thanks to Advanced Northumberland, who have also been integral into all the work that's going on with this, and also in Blythe and other parts of the county as well. I think they've done some tremendously good work. So thanks to them as well, and all the partners that we've raised here. And it's very heartening to see this work happening in Blythe. In fact, I believe the Permanent Secretary at Dulac is actually visiting Blythe tomorrow.
Yes, he's here this evening and he's looking at all the projects tomorrow as part of a deep dive which they're doing into the projects to look at the good work that's been done there.
Good, thank you very much. So there we are. So the recommendations are to approve the updated North East Local Enterprise Partnership full business case for the NEP1 capping beam works in support of the project adjustment request Dulac, to delegate authority in accordance with the local assurance framework to the Council's 151 officer, who's behind me virtually, following consideration by the Energising Blythe Programme Board, to report the capital implications for the Capital Strategy Group for inclusion in our capital programme, subject to funding confirmation by Dulac, and finally to approve the request to spend £500,000 town deal funding and approve an allocation of £31,621 from Energising Blythe programme medium-term financial plan towards the installation of a capping beam. Proposed by Councillor Horncastle? Are you proposing those recommendations? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Are you all in favour? Yes. Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. A tremendous bit of joint partnership working, and I'm so grateful to everybody involved in that. And, well, another paper about Blythe. Can you tell us about the Northern Gateway Phase 2, the outline business case, Councillor Poshai?
Of course, I can, Leader. It's another very similar report with the similar sort of recommendations as previous reports. This one is about the Northern Gateway Phase 2, which is a project which will deliver improved public realm, cycleways, footpaths, roads, which will enhance the access to the Blythe Town Centre from the north, and that's focusing mostly around the Regent Street. We are currently delivering Phase 1, which are the similar improvements to Bow Street and Church Street. This project aims to increase the footfall in the town centre. We know that Blythe town centre has been neglected for many years and the footfall was very poor and we couldn't attract many businesses there. That's what we are trying to change with this project. It will improve the quality of cycling and walking provisions, reduce existing barriers to make movement in and out of the town centre easier. It will also connect to the previously approved website to town centre link, what will provide the connectivity from town north of the town to the new railway station and website. On the top of that, it will increase active travel and reduce car journeys for local residents. The total cost of the project is about £3.4 million, with £2.1 million coming from the Town Deal Fund and match funding from Northumberland County Council of £1.3 million, which is another great spending for Blythe. And the project will be completed by February 2026. And the outline business case has been already approved by the Town Deal Board on the 28th September this year. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Richard, would you like to add something to this?
Yes, just briefly. It's as Councillor Posh has mentioned, another great example of funding going into the town deal, both from the government and from the county council. A big part of the challenge for Blythe is about permeability and about public realm, and this is going to assist greatly with that. There's lots of other schemes that are coming forward in terms of buildings, in terms of educational facilities and facilities that will allow for enhanced employment opportunities. It all is really stitched well together. And in addition to Councillor Poshai and others within the county council, we should thank as well members of the town deal board, the likes of Alan Ferguson, and Tony Quinn from the Catapult, who spend great amounts of their time to help us along this path and make sure that we're getting these projects as they should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or queries? Okay, so this is agreeing to the outline business case, and if we move on to the stage after this, we will then be looking at the funding, and the funding is going to come from a range of different sources, including ourselves. Over £1 million from the County Council towards us, as well as all the other partners that are involved. So honestly, it's fantastic news for Blythe and the Blythe people. Okay, no questions. So then we go to the recommendation, which is to approve the outline business case for the Northern Gateway Phase 2 project, to enable progression to a full business case, to delegate authority in accordance with the local assurance framework, to delegate to the Council's 151 officer following consideration by the Energising Blythe Programme Board, to approve the full business case and report the capital implications to the Capital Strategy Group for inclusion in our capital programme, and then to delegate approval to the Executive Director to execute all contracts relating to the project, subject to the confirmation of associated funding being in place and the appropriate procurement processes being followed. Proposed by Councillor Poshai, seconded by Councillor Patterson? Yes, thank you. All in favour? Good, thank you very much. And that's you for the moment, I think, Councillor Poshai. So now we move on to something quite different, which is the County Council rationale for the establishment or continuation of a council-owned company. And by way of introduction, Councillor Wearmouth will take us through this. This is about making sure that we have a process, a full series of checks and balances that will allow us to determine whether we wish to have arm's length companies and other types of companies. And we will look at those in great detail before we decide to either continue or to begin such companies. So it's a very important stage, this, in the way forward for our council. Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you, Leader, for stealing at least half of my speech.
Yes.
So this is, something that is maybe not as exciting as public realm works in Blythe or new capping beams or new school builds or improved educational outcomes, but it's really important because it's about how we make sure that the council does its business properly and effectively and in accordance with the law. And this work has been done by our team and by Sarah and William, have spent a good deal of time on making sure that wherever we're headed with our holding companies that do such great work for the council, that we're making our way there in an efficient and effective manner. And I would not necessarily spend huge volumes of time reading out this report, but I would point you to some of the relevant paragraphs in this report, and perhaps to paragraph 8 on page 2, which is about forming a clear case for the functions or activities to be carried out through alternative delivery models that might not be core to everyday council business. And we set ourselves a series of questions here in terms of how we analyse what sort of model and what sort of delivery we intend, and goes on through into paragraph 9 to identify the different types of ways that we can deliver these various parts of council business, whether that's in-house, through a local authority company. Sometimes it will be through a joint service delivery programme and through shared services. Other times it will be through a joint venture company, perhaps with a private sector partner, or it may be entirely outsourced. And it's just really important that we get that right in the context, as it says in paragraph 10 of the Localism Act, and so on. And this will set the tone for how we deal, as I say, with all of our business in the future when it comes to, in particular, wholly owned subsidiaries. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Wearmouth. Councillor Watson.
Yes, Chair, again, just to reiterate on items 10, 11 and 12 on the agenda, Diane and Thompson myself will not vote. They are either directly involved or indirectly involved with Advance. We correct not to take part, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Brenner-Thompson.
Just, I would quite like to get Suki's opinion on that, whether she would like us to leave the room or not. If she says no, that's fine, just to cover ourselves.
Yes.
Hi, Leader. Hello, everyone. Yes, I know Helen's in the room as well on my behalf. I did send her a text message to say, with regard to this item, I don't need you to leave the room because this is actually looking at the overall business strategy of our companies. It's not specifically looking at a company. It's looking at the business case that you would need to establish a company. I'm absolutely fine and comfortable for you to take part in this. However, with regard to Advance, the item what is after this, I can't remember what item on the agenda, those directors, those members that are directors on Advance will need to leave the room, and they can't take part in any of the decision making either, or
Marvellous.
take part, I should say, in the discussion.
Marvellous. Thank you very much. I hope that's helpful. So it'll be the next paper that you want to do that, I think. Okay. Any questions or comments? So this is a very important piece of work for us. It sets in place for the first time, a process for being absolutely clear on why we might want to continue or begin an arm's length company or similar. And we will have to go through at any opportunity that we feel that we need to look at setting up or continuing a company, we will go through this process. So we're absolutely clear and entirely transparent about the needs for it and the way it will work. I hope that's all clear to everyone. Okay, lovely. So if there are no more questions, would someone like to propose this, please? Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Horncastle. Thank you. Are you all in favour? Could you show, please? That's fine. Thank you very much. Okay, so with that in mind, we now move on to paper H, which is applying this council-owned company rationale to Advance Northumberland Limited, an update on the business strategy review. Yes, of course.
Sorry, Leader. Officers as well. Those of you that are directors of Advance, if you're officers in the room,
All right. Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, excuse me, my voice. I now will ask Councillor Wearmouth to tell us more detail about how we are going to use the rationale that we've just agreed to advance Northumberland.
Thank you, Leader. And I'll just make sure that the officers and members have been able to leave, which they have. So, following on from the previous report, this is a report looking at the activity that's undertaken by Advance Northumberland and making sure, in turn, that it is complying with the set of criteria that we have just established. Advance Northumberland is possibly, in terms of North East companies, one of those companies that has been reviewed the most. It's been scrutinised significantly in the public eye, and it has, throughout that time and all the time that I've known it, delivered for residents of Northumberland in an effective and efficient manner. It's a far cry from the company that we encountered, and you'll remember when you and I came into office and in 2017 into an administration, and the things that were encountered within Arch. And whilst there are things still probably within Arch that need to be finalised in terms of any review and so on, Advance will go from strength to strength. And in here, you can see on the start of page 3 and on into 4, the kind of activities that the company is engaged with, in which we are tasking it as an administration with continuing, and that includes providing house building for private sale, with a significant and enhanced proportion being of houses that are affordable homes, something that's really key to our administration and complements our own strategy in terms of council housing and the HRA account, which we ring-fenced for affordable home provision in the budget this year just gone, or going. To provide and continue to provide an excellent service as a private sector landlord. The company owns significant numbers of property in the Hurst and elsewhere, and we've rationalised that over a number of years to make sure that that is in county and is targeted at the communities that we wish to support as an authority. The company will continue to hold and manage commercial property in terms of its portfolio. A lot of that is historic, carried over from the districts, but a significant proportion of that is property that was acquired by the administration prior to the last Conservative administration that took office in 2017, and we're thinking of things like Manor Walks and some of the other things that the Labour administration of the time went on a shopping spree in order to acquire, and which we are now left to manage. In addition to that, you will be aware that Advance Northumberland has a significant support function in terms of other activities such as support for businesses and development of projects, some of which are on our enterprise zones and so on and so forth. There's a task in here which is an important one, which is that we continue to evolve an asset management plan for the company. When I came into office, there wasn't even an asset register that I could lay hands on. We know where everything is now, and we know what it is, and we know what we need to do in order to make it work well for the people of Northumberland. And then we go on in this report to identify the next steps, which is to make sure that we have clear commissioning from the council, so that the council is very clear about what it's instructing the company to do. We've made that certainly plain in part of this report, and we'll continue to enhance that to make sure that the board of directors and the officer team within Advance are never in any doubt of what's expected of them. And there is another part, which is, in addition to that, we need to map out a long-term, secure financial model for the company. We're entering a time where we are seeing significant increases in interest rates and inflation, and we need to make sure that the county is secure, and that its operating subsidiaries and companies and holding companies are secure in that sense as well. And that's what we'll be busy doing in the next part of the strategy. There will be other parts that will follow in a very short space of time, including governance arrangements, to make sure that the government arrangements within the council that mirror what goes on within the company, to make sure that the two entities interface seamlessly and that we drive best value. Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you very much indeed. So are there any questions at this stage? I'd just point out Appendix A. Cabinet have been through this appendix. It's very important that the questions that are being asked and the answers that are provided are there and clear. This will be reviewed again in a year's time, in November 23. But it is making things completely clear for everyone how this Advanced Northumberland is going to run, and how it will go from strength to strength. And I think all Cabinet will agree with me that Advance have done a fantastic job across the county in many ways. We just want that to continue and go forward. I want to also thank Sarah McMillan, who has done a huge amount of work on this, and without her input we would not be having this paper today. We are keen to keep the pace going on the rationale, Advance, and the paper that's coming next, and we will continue to keep the pace going because Advance has had some pretty unfair mauling, and that's going to stop. And the only way we can demonstrate that it needs to stop is by showing what a good company it is, and that all our processes and procedures are absolutely transparent and clear, and that's what it's going to be like. So the recommendations are there. We agree that Active Northumberland Limited continues to provide significant benefits to the county as an effective mechanism to deliver economic growth and jobs, regeneration and place-shaping priorities of the council, contributing to economic growth, tackling inequalities and value for money. And bear in mind, those are our three key priorities. Then we are asking Cabinet to endorse the findings, proposed strategic direction and emerging recommendation from the Advanced Northumberland Limited review of business strategy set out in this report and endorsed by the Advanced Northumberland Limited board. And finally, to note that further work is continuing to take forward the business strategy review, including an external financial review. And as the review continues, further recommendations may come forward to Cabinet as the company's shareholders where approval is going to be required. So there we are. Do we have a proposer, please? Proposed by Councillor Pojai, seconded by Councillor Wearmouth. Are you all in favour? Please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the third in this suite, but I will wait. I think we can get members back for this one now.
Some members back, Leader, and some other members will need to leave.
And some members will need to leave. Do we say goodbye to you here, Councillor
Yes,
Pojai?
yes, Leader. I would like to declare an interest as Director of Northumberland Enterprise Holdings Limited, at least at the moment, and I think that applies to Guy Render Thompson as well.
Fine.
I will leave the room, thank you.
Fine. You'll return, though.
And Leader, the same goes for officers as well. If you're directors of this group, company, then you also need to leave.
If there are any members of staff who are directors of Nick or Nell, then they need to leave the room also.
Directors of Nick? Those coming back, should we not have the chief executive back, the interim chief executive back for this?
We can have Rick back, yes.
Yes. So would somebody be, I wonder if you could be so kind to run very, very quickly, Councillor Stewart, and ask if they would come back in. Thank you very much. We won't be a moment. We'll just hang fire for a second.
Oh, hang on. Hang on. Sorry, Gordon, come back. You're okay. Take a seat, Councillor Stewart. Rick's apparently a director.
Oh, is he? Okay. Right. Okay. In that case, we are all present and correct. Thank you very much for the guidance on that. You can relax. You don't need to run anywhere now. Okay. So the next paper is the future of Northumberland Enterprise Holdings Limited and Northumbria Integrated Consultancy Limited. I'm going to ask Councillor Richard Wearmouth to introduce and discuss this, and then if our Section 151 Officer Jan Willis would like to come in after, Councillor Wearmouth, you'd be welcome to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the third part of this incredibly sort of wordy trilogy that we have around the holding companies and various company arrangements that we have. It all forms, though, part of the same work stream, which is making sure that we are putting in place the correct governance for the council. And so it is, as I said earlier, just as important as all the reports that you're receiving to Cabinet today. And this one is relatively straightforward again. And I know that you've all had the chance to read it. I'll read the recommendations in a moment, but effectively what it is doing is to put Northumberland Enterprise Holdings Limited into a dormant status and then to go on to dissolve Northumbria Integrated Consultancy Limited, which has been the more active part of these holding companies and has been involved in the various international consultancy pieces of work that have been the subject of plenty of discussions before now that we don't need to rehash and go back over, I suggest. The position is such because the costs of continuing Northumberland Enterprise Holdings in terms of having these shell companies is very limited. And as we go through some relatively challenging financial times, we might have need of some of these companies to come into effect to do certain things on behalf of the council, which hopefully they'll never be called on to do. The reason for dissolving NIC is clear. It's gone through its function and it just needs to go. And go quickly now that it has no real liabilities left at all or things that it's doing. To that end, those two first aims can be, we can add a third recommendation at 1.3, which is changing some of the directors to reflect the relative inactivity of the company or companies within that group. And so that is to remove Rick O'Farrell, Councillor Ploshai and Councillor Renner Thompson as directors of Northumberland Enterprise Holdings, and in so doing to replace them and to ensure that the entity remains quorate. We'll be prevailing on William Thompson, Phil Hunter as officers of this council and Councillor Lynn Grimshaw as an existing director of NEL to take forward those roles. In addition, we'll be removing Kelly Gardner, Rick O'Farrell as directors of NIC and appointing Phil and William and Councillor Grimshaw to take it through its last parts that it needs to do in order to wind itself up. There are a few of the recommendations in there. We need to agree the termination of the NIC's work with its, in terms of its framework with a company called Rongshao. We need to adopt the Northumberland Enterprise Holding CSR role profile, which is attached in Appendix D, defining what it's there for and what it will do in the future, which at the moment is very little. To appoint an Executive Director of Finance for NEH, just so that it can keep itself in good order. That will not be a cumbersome task. And to authorise the CSR to request that the board of NEHL to execute the above actions on the direction of the council. So a little bit wordy, a little bit transactional it might seem, but very necessary. Thank you.
Jan, I'm going to bring you in, given this report is claimed to be a little wordy and transactional.
Thank you, Leader. I'll try to be very succinct. So we have considered, in particular, whether making Nell dormant at this particular time, given the recommendation to dissolve NIC, is the right thing to do. The material consideration here was preserving the VAT registration of Nell as the holding company, for the wider group, and had it been the case that there were some immediate proposals to establish new trading entities as subsidiaries of Nell, then it would have made sense to not to make Nell dormant. However, it is apparent that there are no immediate prospects, and therefore should we wish to establish new trading subsidiaries at some future date, Nell would have to reapply for VAT registration. The downside of that, obviously, is that should the council need to establish a trading subsidiary at short notice in an emergency situation, unlikely as that may seem, there would be a delay in obtaining VAT registration. So that was the material consideration, but on balance, the view that was taken was that making Nell dormant was the sensible thing to do, and the rest of the proposals in the report, as Councillor Wearmouth has outlined, are tidying up operations. Appointing me as the council shareholder representative will ensure that I'm able to issue the necessary instructions to the board to give effect to Cabinet's recommendations. And we have taken tax and legal advice as well, and considered all the relevant risks to the council of the proposed course of action. And we're satisfied that there's nothing of substance that would stand in the way of Cabinet agreeing the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So any questions or queries about any of this? No? All clear on it? Okay then. So Councillor Wearmouth has read the recommendations out. Essentially what this is about is saying we will keep Nell as a holding company should we ever need it in the future, but it will then, if it is used in the future, will be subject to that rationale that we took 2 papers ago to ensure that it's something that we do need. And this is a very clear and final statement that the international business is over. You've had the recommendations. Do you propose those?
Absolutely.
Is there a seconder? No. Seconded by Councillor Watson. Can I have a show of hands, please? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for all the work that you've done on this, Jan, as well as your staff. Could you very kindly see if we can get the others back now to hear from Wendy, who's going to tell us all about the draft adult social care market position statement in 2022, which is very, very important. So if you just hang fire for a second, we'll wait till the officers come back and their members. Ah, here they are. Lovely. Okay, so we can now continue, and I'm going to ask Councillor Wendy Patterson to tell us about our draft adult social care market position statement, please. Wendy.
Thank you very much, Leader. This is rather lengthy, but it's important, I think, that I read it all out. I will refer, I don't like acronyms, but rather than keep saying market position statement, I will say MPS as it progresses through. So, a market position statement is a document produced by a commissioning authority that outlines what support and care services need and how they are provided. This is an important document for adult social care and is primarily targeted at those organisations that are currently delivering or considering offering social care in Northumberland. It is one of the ways in which the Council fulfils its duty under the Care Act to shape the adult social care provider market and ensure there is sufficient provision of high-quality services in the county. The document is designed to help social care providers understand the needs of the council and residents in Northumberland and describes in detail the population of the county and how this is expected to change. The MPS was last published in 2019, but has been deliberately delayed due to allowing the commissioning team to try and understand the medium-term impact of the fallout from the COVID crisis. This was a highly unusual period for care services and left residential and nursing care, in particular, in very unusual situations with high levels of vacancies. Key points within this refresh are: while we expect to see an increasingly ageing population in Northumberland, the document is careful in its messaging to providers about how this will translate into demand for some services. For example, the MPS refers to national research by Lang Buisson that highlights the reducing demand for older persons' care homes. Despite an increasingly ageing population, and this is in part explained through changing aspirations for older people who are opting for more independent types of accommodation and support through extra care. The MPS reaffirms the Council's commitment to developing extra care in Northumberland. The document is cautious about whether more older persons' care homes are required at present. Previously, officers would have been confident about saying that we have the right levels of older persons' care homes in the county, and we definitely do not need any more. However, the difficulties in delivering other types of care, particularly home care, have led to additional placements in older persons' care homes and made it difficult to measure long-term demand. Whilst we do not have any clear evidence of a need to build more homes, providers are invited to talk to the Council if they are considering expanding the number of older persons' care homes. The Council was recently criticised by Care North East, which is an association representing the interests of care home owners, who said that the older persons' care home market was on the verge of collapse in Northumberland. Whilst there are significant challenges and pressure in adult social care services, officers do not see any tangible evidence that the sector as a whole is on the verge of collapse, and at a recent meeting asked the Care Home Association for evidence of this. To date, none has been presented. There may well be some providers who show signs of the pressure currently in the system, for example through a drop in performance in monitoring and inspection, individual financial issues, and some that decide they no longer want to deliver services. However, officers do not think this amounts to evidence of the sector being on the verge of collapse. Like all other areas of the country, there are shortages of nurses in Northumberland, and this may impact on the availability of nursing homes in the future. The MPS does encourage dialogue with care providers and references that officers will work with organisations to monitor their performance and continue to support quality improvements. The MPS does acknowledge that home care services are currently under the most pressure in the care sector, as can be evidenced by the number of care packages that the Council has assessed as being required, but is unable to find providers who are able to immediately deliver these. The MPS sets out that the Council are particularly keen to hear from providers interested in delivering care, and particularly in the more rural areas of the county. We are also keen to hear from those with new ideas about how they can expand the workforce. The shortages of home care are now a well-reported regional and national problem, and the issue is being considered at regional and national levels, as well as here in Northumberland. Despite the difficult climate, the Council continues to attract new providers to its frameworks for traditional home care and specialist services for people with needs arising from mental health conditions and learning difficulties. The message is, for providers of specialist services, is that the Council is particularly looking for specialisms in support for people with autism and dementia. We would also like to see innovation in care services, and the use of technology in delivering of care is encouraged generally. The MPS is not the only means by which the Council engages with the market, but it is often used to start the conversation with providers interested in delivering care services in Northumberland. The ongoing dialogue that officers have with care providers will continue through meetings and provider forums. However, it is important that we are able to point to a published document that organisations can go to, and I therefore recommend that Cabinet approves the publication of the new version of the MPS. If anyone has any questions, I do have Adult Social Care Office team behind me, Neil and Alan, if anyone would like to ask them anything.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or queries about this matter? So we know that this is something that's very important for us to understand and to deal with, given the situation with the home care area. I commend our staff for doing everything they can and being very much on top of the position. We know that the issues around pay and conditions may not be the same as someone working in stacking shelves in Tesco, for example, which is the same sort of rate of pay, but the work that our home care providers give is so good and so incredibly important. We must do everything we can to maintain and improve the quality and quantity of helpers that we have. Okay, so any questions at all, queries? Can I just ask? When will we receive sort of next update on progress? Could I ask Neil that question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We can bring an update on progress whenever members would like to hear that. I mean, the refresh is broadly done about every 2 years of the market position statement, but it is in essence a prospectus. So that's an update of a prospectus. We would expect to bring interim reports on where we stand in terms of the market as and when issues are arising. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll get regular reports to the senior strategic leadership team, so that'll be fine. Thank you very much for that. The recommendation is to approve this position statement. We also have had this at the scrutiny committee, where I believe it was Alan Curry who attended that, and they welcomed the report and agreed that everybody was doing a great job, especially given the issues around the recruitment and retention in rural areas. So we will continue to monitor this, and thank you very much indeed for this work. Have I got a proposal for this? Proposed by Councillor Horncastle, seconded by Councillor Patton. Are we all in favour? Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for that. Now we move back to Councillor Renner-Thompson. And yes, of course. We move to Councillor Renner-Thompson again. This time he's going to tell us about the very interesting new development, which is around family hubs, something we're very proud about and very interested in, and looking forward to hearing about it from you.
Thank you, Leader. This is not a new development, as you've pointed out. This is an update report. So, what is a family hub? I hear you cry. A family hub are centres which, as part of integrated family services, ensure families of children and young people aged 0 to 19 receive early help to overcome a range of difficulties and build stronger relationships. This is essentially a reiteration of what we know as the Sure Start centres. I'm a very big believer in these, actually, because early intervention is key to most things. Effective early intervention can improve children's well-being, educational attainment, and life chances, reduce family poverty, improve mental health, which leads to lower crime, lower unemployment, and other negative outcomes, which would carry significant cost to the public purse. So it's good for everyone. We are in tune to receive between £3.354 and £3.479 million from the government to progress these hubs. This is a large funding statement. Only 75 local authorities in the country have been allocated this share of funds, which is an overall pot of around £300 million. So we are one of the first local authorities to get this money. The report sets out where we are in terms of the development. If you switch to page 2, it goes through where we're at. The key takeaway points are the development on moving the youth service into the same buildings as these family hubs, which will enable it to better target those families which need it the most. And also how we have 2P'd some staff from Bernardo's and the South East locality early help services. That's an important point to make because there was some chatter about that when it first came out, but no staff have been lost. All the staff have simply been moved into the county council and will continue providing those services. So I'm open for questions, and behind me I have Graham Rito, one of the joint interim directors for Children's Services, who is also here to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Renner-Thompson. Any questions? Yes.
It's more of a comment. I just wish to thank Councillor Guy Renner-Thompson for recently visiting the Family Hub in Prydda, and to make you aware that the fantastic Happy Faces Club in Prydda and the youth service run by the Prydda Youth Partnership are using the facilities there as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Which town did you say?
Premier town in Tynedale, if not the whole county.
Okay, right. My own view about this is that I think it's a tremendous amount of extra money coming from government. I think I'm very pleased that we've got this money. Change is always difficult, but it looks like this transition is going to work very well for the benefit of the people that we're trying to look after and help. Would you like to add anything, Graham?
The only thing I'd like to add, Chair, the positive comments, absolutely, I agree with, and I think we're building on very good work we already had here and already good partnership working. And as Councillor Renner-Thompson has said, the TUPE across worked very well, and we appreciate the work done with the Bernardo's and actually the children, how that's been managed, and that has been really successful. The only thing I'd like to add is we've also put a further bid in for Trailblazer funding to be one of 15 local authorities to try and drive this forward faster and quicker. We thought we might have heard the outcome of our bid today, but we haven't so far heard from that. So that's the other thing I'd add that we're waiting for. So hopefully we can get additional funding to further drive and enhance the services that we're offering.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you very much. Hopefully we might hear more about Trailblazer status sooner than we think anyway, perhaps in the next week or two. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed for that. There are recommendations there, 1, 2 and 3. Are they proposed by Councillor Renner-Thompson? They are, and seconded by Councillor Horncastle. Are you all in favour, please? Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Takes us on to our last paper in the open session, which is a summary of new capital proposals. And we will take each one, Cabinet member will take each one as we go by. I'll take the first one because Councillor Riddle has had to go urgently to another meeting. The first one is around Charlton Park and Hurst Park. This is some money from the Parks and Enhancement Capital Programme in respect of providing money towards a statue for Jack Charlton. This is the most marvellous project. I'm so pleased we're working with Ashington Town Council and others, and the local councillors there. It's great, and if you get the chance to go, please have a look at it. Money really well spent, and I'm very happy with this. We move on to the next one, which I'll take, which is around the a grant for 81,000 from the medium-term financial plan for the Treescape Fund. And this will be administered by the Forest Commission for our Great Northumberland Forest. And the Great Northumberland Forest doesn't mean a huge, great new Kielder. It means lots of separate little bits of woodland that will all together form the Great Northumberland Partnership, and we will reach our achievement of planting thousands and thousands of trees, not just for the beauty of the county, but also to help us with our carbon sequestration. So very pleased with that one. I move on now to Councillor Horncastle, who tell us about the HRA affordable housing scheme. Could you put your microphone on, Barry?
Yes, indeed. Yes, I mean, this is an excellent story for the council. It shows what can happen with through planning with excellent 106 agreements that suit the area. Here we have a position in Alnwick where we've got an ageing stock of 2-bedroom homes, and we've now got 8 new ones. And the good news about this is that it's such an affordable price, £126,000. So we've got the 8 for just slightly over 1 million. Excellent new houses with high-spec insulation. So it's a good news story. But however, there is slightly a downside to this. There is. It just shows that what this council can do with 106 agreements with affordable housing, but usually it's only in the towns. And it highlights the lack of affordable housing that we can provide in the rural areas and up the coast, where we haven't got any large developments coming along to generate housing. The sites have planning designations like open countryside, ONBs, green belt, but can be done through rural exception sites and community-led schemes and neighbourhood planning. But it just shows it's a lot slower process in the rural areas. And it's in the rural areas where we are really, really lacking affordable housing. And with the cost on the market costs for the rental houses, the rentals in the rural areas, and that cost of buying houses in the rural areas, we really need. So this just highlights the good side of affordable housing, but it also highlights the fact that we've still got some way to go through a lot of hard work in the rural areas to generate some more.
So this is great news, though, isn't it? Another 8 houses for affordable use that we have bought using the money that we set to one side for the procurement of affordable housing. So we have said that's what we're going to do, and this is what we have done here. And hopefully it will be one of many schemes like this. And I'm really grateful that we're doing this. So brilliant news, and great for the new folk that will be moving into there. Thank you. The next one is the Commissioner's Key, Richard Weirman.
Thank you, Leader. So this is to accept some funding. If I just find my correct page, give me a moment. Accept capital grant and associated budget for just shy of £60,000 to assist with the development of Commissioner's Key. And this comes from the Brownfield Housing Fund from the North of Tyne Combined Authority. And we as an administration work tirelessly with the North of Tyne Combined Authority to generate a list of projects to come forward because it's often more difficult to get schemes moving on brownfield land. Everyone always says, oh, well, build housing on brownfield land, do this on brownfield land, that on brownfield land, but it comes at a cost. And this will assist in making sure that we're finishing that housing scheme in Blythe, in the heart of Blythe, getting good quality housing stock there to help in the town's onward regeneration. So anyone who goes along there to Commissioner's Key, the view is fantastic. I'm sure that there are properties still available. Other housing providers exist also, yeah. as the BBC would say. Thank you.
Excellent. Great news. I'm very pleased about that. Yes, Councillor Watson.
Chair, apologies again. This is to do with advance.
That's okay.
So I'll just take no vote, no part in the conversation, and neither will Guy.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's noted. Karen, could you just note that? Thank you so much. And presumably anyone else with details? Right. Okay, so then we move on to the next one, which is contracts in excess of delegated limits. Tell us what the delegated limits are.
Right, so this is, where are we? We're in paragraph 2.5. So this is purely to do with part of the capital programme for the Learning Hub, which is part, again, of the Blythe Town Deal and Future High Street programme. So we've already made this decision, as you might recall, Leader, but it has to come back to us to make sure that we're following the proper procurement process. And so this is the final bit to allow us to make this award through officers. The value being, as you see there in the second bullet in 2.5 of £9,714,759, which is an incredibly exact number.
It is.
But nonetheless, that's the number that is there, and it's and that is for that purpose, for the Learning Hub in Blythe, which will give Blythe school kids a fantastic gateway into employment in all of the green energy jobs that have been created in the Blythe Estuary.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. There are some recommendations which we've taken as we've gone along. Are we all happy to approve those projects? Proposed by Councillor Renner Thompson.
No.
Wasn't it?
It's not, because one.
Oh, it's not. Sorry. Proposed by Councillor Pozai and seconded by Councillor Horncastle. All in favour that are able to vote?
We are quorate.
That's fine. We are fine. So with that, that takes us to the end of the formal agenda. Can I thank everyone for joining? I would just say this has been a hugely, slightly long, but a hugely enjoyable meeting in that we have spent many millions of pounds of taxpayers' money, but on absolutely the right things. New schools, new developments in Blythe, and across the county. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We move into, could we have a...
Well, I think we need urgent...
There's no urgent business, so can we move into the recommendation proposed by...
I propose that we move into private session.
Private session, seconded by Councillor